Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. Fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. In last week's lesson, we were looking at the middle part of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's hijrah to Medina Munawwara, and I mentioned that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told Hazrat Ali radhiyallahu anhu to sleep in his bed, to sleep in his bistar. Thereafter, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam quietly opened the door of his friend's house. He had a handful of sand and mud in his palm, and he threw it at Abu Jahl, Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt, the leaders of the Quraysh who were hanging outside for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam so that they can capture him and kill him. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam threw sand on their eyes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then put a veil and a parda and hijab over their eyes, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was able to walk right in front of them without them seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam thereafter, he went to Hazrat Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu's house, and with Hazrat Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam then went to the cave of Thawr. And it was in this cave of Thawr that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Hazrat Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu remained for 3 days. And I mentioned in last week's lesson that during these 3 days, Abdullah, who was the son of Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, he would come to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr during the night and inform them of what the Quraysh were planning to do, inform them of the latest updates which would happen in Makkah throughout the day. Similarly, Hazrat Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu's daughter Asma radhiyallahu anha would come and make food and give the food at night to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu. And Amr bin Fuhayra, who was the slave of Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, he would graze his goats and sheep throughout the day, and then at night he would bring milk to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu. So this is what was happening for 3 days. Now on the 4th day, and this was pre-planned from before, that Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu met this person called Abdullah bin Uraykit. And Abdullah bin Uraykit, he was actually a non-Muslim. He was actually a mushrik. He didn't believe in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But before Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu planned it with him, that Abdullah bin Uraykit was going to show Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu the way to Medina Munawwara. Because remember, this was the very first time Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu were making their way to Medina Munawwara. They didn't have, TomTom or Google Maps in those days. So Abdullah bin Uraykit, he was like a guide, and he was showing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or he was going to show Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu the direction to Medina. Now, one point to remember here is, as I've already said, Abdullah bin Uraykit, he wasn't a Muslim. And later on, he did not become a Muslim. He was a mushrik. But he respected Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he did not share the views which the pagans of Makkah or the leaders of the Quraysh had regarding Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In terms of, he did not believe Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be mad or majnoon as the pagans of Makkah believed in. He did not believe that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was to blame for the division and the disunity within Makkah, which led to many people migrating to Medina Munawwara. He did not believe or share the views of the leaders of the Quraysh regarding Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He actually respected Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he did not believe in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And from this, what we can gather is that just merely respecting someone or just merely respecting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam doesn't mean that you will be saved in the hereafter. Many people, they respect Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Many non-Muslims, they respect Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in what he taught, in what he believed in, but unfortunately they don't believe in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's not going to save them in the hereafter. So similarly, Abdullah bin Uraykit, he respected Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but that's not going to save him in the hereafter. Why? Because he did not believe in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So as I was saying, that Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, he already planned with Abdullah bin Uraykit that he was going to show them the way to Medina Munawwara. So on the fourth day, Abdullah bin Uraykit, he came with his own camel, and he got Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu ready for the last part and the last leg of the journey to Medina Munawwara. So it's mentioned in the books of Seerah that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was sitting on his own camel, so he had his own camel. It's mentioned that Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu was on his camel, and Amr bin Fuhaira was behind Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu. And then Abdullah bin Uraykit, he had his own camel. So the four of them, obviously if you include Amr bin Fuhaira and the three camels, they now slowly making their way from Makkah to Medina Munawwara. Now there's two main routes which you can go to Medina Munawwara. There's the main route. Main route, basically, those of you been for Hajj or Umrah will know that this is the route where most of the buses and the coaches go direct from Makkah to Medina Munawwara. But Abdullah bin Uraykit, he did not take Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu through this particular route, because he knew that if they were to go on this route, then the Quraysh, because remember they are still looking and searching for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they would easily be able to catch him. So what happened was Abdullah bin Uraykit took Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu on a coastal route, which was like a longer route, but it was much safer from Makkah to Medina Munawwara. Now, there's differences of opinions regarding when did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam depart for Medina Munawwara from Makkah. And the difference is regarding the actual days, not on the date, because all the scholars agree that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left Makkah for Medina Munawwara on the 1st of Rabiul Awwal. But the actual day, there's a difference. Some scholars say that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left on a Monday. That Monday coincided with the 1st of Rabiul Awwal. And a second opinion is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left on a Thursday, and that coincided with the 1st of Rabiul Awwal. Some scholars have done tatbiq or reconcile between the two narrations, and they've said that those scholars who say that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left on a Monday, they mean Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left his house on a Monday. And those who say that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left on a Thursday, they mean Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left Ghar Thawr, i.e. the cave of Thawr, on the Thursday, because as I was explaining earlier, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in the cave of Thawr for 3 days. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left Ghar Thawr, i.e. the cave of Thawr, on Thursday. So whichever way you look at it, if you take the Monday opinion, it means Monday in terms of he left his house on Monday. But those who say Thursday, they mean in terms of leaving Ghar Thawr on the Thursday. Now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu and Amr bin Fuhaira and Abdullah bin Uraykit, who was their guide, the four of them, they were making their way now towards Medina Munawwara. And on the way, there's a particular hadith or a particular incident which can be found in the books of hadith regarding the story of Ma'bad radhiyallahu anha. It's known as Qissatu Ma'bad, i.e. the story concerning Ma'bad radhiyallahu anha. And I'm mentioning this story because this is again one of many countless of miracles and mu'jizas of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now what happened was that Ma'bad radhiyallahu anha, she lived in a house which was in between Makkah and Medina. And if you want to use a modern day term or example, you could say Ma'bad radiallahu anha's house was like a service station. And what would happen is that travelers would walk past or travel past a house. They would go to a house and they would buy and purchase food, things from her. So similarly, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions, they passed by Ma'bad radiallahu anha's house and they decided to stop over and just relax and stay here for a few minutes before they continue and restart their journey. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went inside Ma'bad radiallahu anha's house and he saw a goat in the corner of the house. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked Ma'bad that, what is this goat doing here? Why don't you send it out with the other goats and sheep on the green grass outside, let them graze? So Ma'bad radiallahu anha replied that this goat is very, very weak and frail. He doesn't have the energy to leave my house and go to the garden outside and eat from the green grass. So that's why I just leave it here. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked Ma'bad that, does this goat give any milk? So she, Ma'bad, remember at that time she wasn't a believer. Later on she believed in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She started laughing at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at this goat. Look how weak and frail he is. How on earth it's going to give milk? It doesn't even graze. How on earth it's going to have the energy and the taqat to give milk? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam then asked Ma'bad that, let me try milking this goat and see whether some milk comes out. So again, Ma'bad was like in proper, hysterically laughing that, this goat is so weak and frail, not a chance in earth or hell that this, particular goat is going to give you any milk. I could guarantee you no milk from this particular goat. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, don't worry, let me just give it a try. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam put his blessed hands on the udders of the goat and he started milking the goat. And it's mentioned in the hadith that so much milk came out that it filled one big massive burtan and container which was capable or able to satisfy 10 people. So that's how much milk came out from this weak and frail and kamzor bakri and sheep. Why? Because of the blessed hands of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam touching that sheep. Because of that reason so much milk came out. So that's one particular miracle. And it then goes on to say, then afterwards Ma'bad then told her husband when he came about this particular miracle, and later on they then accepted and believed in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now going back to the main story. Now, as I was saying before, that the Quraysh, they sent a large search party to go and look and search for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And also at the same time, the Quraysh, they made an announcement and they said that whoever captures or can capture Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we will give that person 100 camels. So if anybody could capture Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or even kill him, we would give that person 100 camels. Now it's mentioned in a hadith which can be found in Sahih al-Bukhari that there was a person whose name was Suraqah bin Malik. Now later on he converted to Islam, but at that time he wasn't a Muslim. So what happened was that somebody came to Suraqah bin Malik and they said to him that, Suraqah, I think I saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu leaving Makkah. I think the two people who I saw on the camel and then there was somebody else guiding them, I can't be sure, but I think it was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Now Suraqah bin Malik, he knew that the two people who left was actually Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr. He had this thing in his heart that yes, it is Abu Bakr and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But he didn't want this person to take the 100 camels. So he said to him, convinced him firstly that no, it's not Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's not Abu Bakr, it's somebody else. So after he kind of convinced and sweet talked that person that it's not Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and he managed to get rid of him. As soon as he went, Suraqah bin Malik then got on his horse and then traveled to that direction where that person saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He then went to that direction. As I was explaining before, that Rasulullah sallallahu was they were on camels, so obviously camels, it goes slowly, and obviously a horse, a very fast galloping horse, is gonna catch them up. So Suraka bin Malik, he was riding and he was traveling to that coastal direction, and he was slowly catching up to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu. Now Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu kept on looking back, and he kept on seeing this person on a horse coming after them, and he said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasulullah, there's somebody behind us, he's going to catch us up, he's going to like kill us, he's going to capture us. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam kept on saying those words I explained in last week's lesson, La tahzan inna Allah ma'ana, which means that don't worry, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. Now when Suraka bin Malik got in touching distance of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said a curse, or made a la'nat, a curse against Suraka bin Malik. And as soon as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the words, the curse hit Suraka bin Malik, and the horse which he was traveling on, it automatically or straight away, it started sinking into the sand. So he was riding, but as soon as the curse hit him, it was not actually sand, but it was one of those rocky kind of sand. So it wasn't like really like anything like quicksand or anything like that. But all of a sudden, the horse which he was traveling on, it sank to the ground, and the ground basically got up to the horse's knees, and he stopped Suraka bin Malik in his tracks in attacking or hurting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He then goes on to say in the hadith that because Suraka bin Malik he was stopped on in his tracks, he then got a bow and arrow, and he started aiming for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But as soon as he got his bow and arrow ready and he was pointing at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his arms became paralyzed. He couldn't move his arms. Now Suraka bin Malik knew that this was from Allah, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he was on the haqq, that his hijrah, migration to Medina was on haqq, and because remember, if Allah wants or wills something to happen, you can't stop that. So Suraka bin Malik knew that because it was Allah's will, God's will, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will migrate to Medina, so he could do whatever he wants. He would not be able to stop Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu from migrating. So what happened was that he then said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, O Prophet of Allah, please forgive me, pray to Allah, this was a mistake, you pray to Allah for me, and then I'll turn back and I won't chase you. So what happened? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam then prayed to Allah to stop the azab, to stop the la'nat and the curse, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted the dua, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the horse come out of the ground, and also his arms better again. Now instead of Suraka bin Malik taking any heed or taking a lesson from this, he started then galloping after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam again the second time. So again Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made the curse, and the exact same thing happened, that the horse sank into the ground and his arms became paralyzed when he wanted to throw a spear or an arrow at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now this time he was a bit more genuine and sincere, so he begged Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam the second time, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam accepted, and he made dua for him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lifted the curse and the azab. The horse came back up again and his arms became better. Thereafterwards, Suraka bin Malik told Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that what he intended to do, what the Quraysh had said, that anybody who can capture or kill Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we will give 100 camels to that person. So Suraka bin Malik, he explained that. Thereafter, Suraka bin Malik asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, O Prophet of Allah, can you give me a written guarantee or a promise that when you eventually become the head of state of Arabia, because obviously Suraka bin Malik knew that Rasulullah one day will rule all of Arabia. So he said to him that when you do become head of state and become the ruler of Arabia, can you give me a guarantee or a promise that that you are not, or you are going to honor me, and that you are not going to take revenge for what I did? Because Suraka bin Malik thought that because he was about to kill Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam eventually gets into power, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going to take revenge against him. So he just wanted a written promise, the confirmation that when you do eventually get into power, that you honor me and that you don't take revenge against me for what I did. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied back by saying that I will actually promise you something even better than that. And I promise that when I do get into power, when I do become the head of state and the ruler of Arabia, you will be wearing the crown and the bracelets of the kings of Persia. Now when Suraqah bin Malik, when he heard this, he didn't really understand, but he just went away. Now what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because remember this was a dua from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Remember, whoever Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam does dua for, it's accepted. Similarly, if Rasulullah does badwa for someone, that's also accepted as well. And if somebody Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam does dua for of hidayat and guidance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept that. And what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was doing ishara to, that during Hazrat Umar radhiyallahu anhu's time when Persia was conquered, and as mali ghanimat, as booty, the crown and all the bracelets and all the gold from Persia came into the Muslim hands, Hazrat Umar radhiyallahu anhu remembered, later on he remembered that saying of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he then called Suraqah bin Malik, because at that time he had converted to Islam. He then called Suraqah bin Malik to come to the place where they were distributing the mali ghanimat and the booty. Hazrat Umar radhiyallahu anhu then placed the crown on top of Suraqah bin Malik radhiyallahu anhu's head and gave him a bracelet and said that this is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed and promised for you many years ago, and this is now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepting that dua and that promise of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is a story about Suraqah bin Malik, how he intended to do something bad, but because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had that shafqat and love for him, prayed for him, and because of that reason Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or Hazrat Umar radhiyallahu anhu later on, he honored Suraqah bin Malik. Just one point to mention here before we finish is that this particular, because as we've been looking at through the seerah, you probably, and I did mention this as well, that when you look at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life, there's always so much similarities with the lives of the previous prophets, in terms of like people trying to hurt Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You can see the comparisons and the similarities in the other prophets and the messengers' life. Now similarly, this story of Suraqah bin Malik trying to harm Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then his horse getting stuck in the ground, and if he obviously didn't, or if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't pray for him, then he would have been swallowed up by the ground, is similar to the story of Qarun and Musa alayhi salam, which can be found in the Quran, in the Hadith. Now who was Qarun? Qarun was actually Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam's first cousin. He was actually a Banu Israel. He was a Jew. Now what Qarun did was that instead of siding with Musa alayhi salam, he sided with Fir'aun. He was like Fir'aun's best friend and so on. So he would tell Fir'aun of what Musa alayhi salam is doing, what the Banu Israel were doing. So what happened was that as a azab and as a punishment, that Qarun should have helped and assisted his first cousin Musa alayhi salam, but he then instead sided with Fir'aun and the enemy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then punished Qarun by telling the earth to swallow him up. So that incident of Qarun and Musa alayhi salam mirrors the incident which I mentioned regarding Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Suraqah bin Malik. May Allah give us the tawfiq to act on what's been said. Wa akhir da'wana.